Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our blended garden community. I'm here with Miss Dana Arthur, who has been a longtime friend of a friend. Her daughter, Lynette Arthur, is one of my very good longtime friends, and I connected with Dana through our love for gardening. So, welcome, Dana. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's so good to see you.
It's
I'm
good
so
to see you. We
proud.
finally got here, right? Oh my gosh, there were so many potholes, but we are here. So Dana is an avid gardener and you also make jewelry. I saw some of your jewelry that you sent me that was made in a shape of a flower. And how do you do that?
It's actually it's a material called PMC, which stands for precious metal clay.
Mhm.
It's an actual clay with silver particles in it, and you can mold it. You can make it into a paste, which is what I do for my leaf and flower pendants.
Mhm.
And you coat the actual flower leaf with this paste, and you create a bell, and you layer it, and you put it in your kiln, which is it fires up, and you're left with a perfect replica of whatever it is you've coated, like
That's
whether a leaf or a flower.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And so now, since we're gardeners, I don't know if you've experienced this, but reading the book, we're talking about, well, we'll be back to chat again and talking about something that it goes a little deeper than some of the conversations we've been having about separation and segregation. And you shared with me how you moved from New York City and moved into a community that, kind of made you feel a little bit like the dandelion in the book. And we'll chat a little bit more about that. But as a gardener, I feel like after reading my own book and hearing it over and over, I'm like, I kind of sometimes do what the gardener does. Even though I allow my garden to grow naturally, and that's how the book was inspired, you do have to do some separating and some sorting in order for things to grow, unless it's just a perennial thing and it just kind of fly like the dandelion, blow this way and that way and land where you may. But
Right.
some gardeners, you do have to kind of separate and sort. So how does your garden grow, Dana? How did your garden grow?
I'm a Virgo, so I do have that tendency to roll the flower bed. So, but I kind of what I use as a guide is more height of the flowers. I make sure little guys are in front,
Okay.
and I try to step it up. It's the taller ones that grow full tall.
So you do
Or
the layered garden.
where everybody can be seen and heard.
I love it. Well, there you go. That's another way to look at it. You're not excluding. You want everyone to be seen and heard. That's a really interesting point. Cool. So we're here to read the book, The Blended Garden, and then Dana and I will come back another time and we will chat about the difference of separation and segregation and just what it feels like to be in a community that chooses to kind of stick to their own kind and you are not that kind, and what that feels like, what that looks like, and how you navigate that new world coming from New York City into this new place, because you did live in New York City for a long half your life, all your life.
All my life. I mean, with the exception of I'm not gonna say how old I am, but with 10 years, I'm a New Yorker. I mean, I'm still a New Yorker
Mhm.
in heart and soul. So yeah,
Yeah, and you came from the Bronx, which is super diverse.
it's very diverse.
you know all right, great. Well, I can't wait to get into our extended chat. So thank you again, Dana, for coming on and reading the book. You've been so supportive and I so appreciate it, and your takeaways from the book. We've been having these wonderful conversations to the side, and the metaphors. I think you texted me the other day and said, oh my gosh, I'm thinking in metaphors, and I'm like, that's awesome, because even though this is a children's book, I've been getting so much joy talking to adults of with just touching on all the metaphors that are within this book. And I'm glad that we found this piece to talk about segregation versus separation. And I have a picture of a painting in the book. The illustrator, Miss Anna O'Donnell, painted this, and
Mhm.
this is the part of the book where the flowers are just trying to connect and intersect, and they can. And so, all right, so the blended garden. read by Miss Dana Arthur.
You. Okay. Once upon a time, in a colorful garden, a dandelion sat alone, disheartened, alone and disheartened. The dandelion saw many flowers from afar, all arranged by color. It was quite bizarre. It longed to be part of the colorful array of tall stems in the wind, where they bend and sway. The old lady gardener, with her hat tilted low, arranging her flowers and wishing they would grow. Now, this old lady gardener was quite confusing. She thought sorting flowers was quite amusing, placing this flower here to match and examine, measure, and compare. As each flower lived in its own special space, apart from their friends, it was a very sad place. With arms reaching outward, they tried to connect, but sadly, divided, they could not intersect. The flowers were angry and they began to stand tall. They said to the gardener, "This makes no sense at all. We are all so different, our colors so unique. Blend us together and you'll see a great treat. Mixing our colors, red, yellow, and blue, our petals like flags for all to view. A rainbow of ribbons blowing in the wind. The flowers protested. We want to be friends, not separate and sorted by particular kind, growing together. That's how we're designed." The old lady sat in her flower yard. She said to her flowers, "I've been working so hard, sorting my flowers. It's tiresome indeed. And could this dandelion be more than a weed?" So tired she was that she took a long nap. And as she slept, zip, zoom, zap, the dandelion slept, then slowly transformed, taking flight in the night above the gardener it soared. All was quiet just beneath the full moon, unaware of the magic that would begin very soon. The old lady awoke from a dream of a blended garden filled with dandelion seeds. As dawn approached, she began stretching and yawning, her arms reaching up to the glory of morning. As she lied in her wheelbarrow, feeling rested and free, envisioning her flowers as a field of we. This blended garden that she saw in her dream was inspiring, extraordinary, and satisfying to see. The old lady gardener with her flowers agreed. There is magic within this dandelion seed. I will no longer sort my dear flowers, friends. And she blew the dandelion seeds into the wind. Blow this way and that way, land where you may. You are part of my garden, and here you will stay.
Thank you
You
so much, Dana. That was beautiful how you read it. So I guess we'll chat more in our deeper conversation. But when you read this, I'm curious as to what part of the book spoke to you based on your experience living in a community where everyone doesn't look like you.
right. I mean, I think was this part that spoke to me is, of course, the sadness of the separation, and for all flowers and for people, with was talking of people. I mean, it's they want to be together. They
Mhm.
would be beautiful as a bouquet or as a merged garden, but by being separated, it's fragmented. So they don't get to enjoy each other and blend like a
Mhm.
blending garden. I think also the fact that the gardener didn't see the magic of
Mm.
the couldn't see, like the value. She couldn't see the that it could be more than a weed.
Mhm.
She had it was almost like profiling
Mhm.
of the dandelion. So that she had to, she came to an awareness that is valuable, and then it ends very well. But it's hard for her to see the value.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of when people choose to separate or outer forces segregate. You don't see the value of, what other people can bring into a community because of the uniqueness and because they're different and because everyone is an individual. You just don't see the value. And I was talking to a friend of mine who made she just made all these edibles foods from dandelions, and she like ripped the whole dandelion apart from the root to the bud,
Oh,
and it was like, wow, I don't know what it tasted like, but she saw value in that one little dandelion and made so many things from it.
amazing. I mean, it is a valuable. I was reading about I mean, just even the medicinal purposes, but also the meaning behind it. There's a lot of heavy meaning in terms of of strength, integrity, and I mean, it has a whole
Oh, tell
history.
me, tell me. I've never even heard of that.
It's almost like you think of the Black woman. I mean, just strong, resilient,
Mhm.
persevering. That's what the dandelion stands for. Basically a symbol of that. If you look up the meaning of it, Google it.
I
It's pretty.
will. I've never looked into. I mean, I looked up a lot of the healing purposes, like the root. Like I watched how people use the root, and then even the American Indians, our indigenous people, they used um, the root as medicine. Now I was talking to someone else. You can buy dandelion root, dandelion tea on Amazon.com.
Oh, I know. It's like, yeah. So it's like you picked a really, I think, you really have something. You're onto something here, girl.
Mm.
And
And can I just tell you, I didn't plan any of this. This is a funny story. The dandelion became a part of my spirit, my mind, and my creativity. I got lost. I was coming from my house in Niagara, and my USB didn't work to charge my phone, and I ran out of gas. And I was going the wrong way, and I ended up in Erie. So I was going 2 hours the opposite way, and this was during COVID. So I was lost, and I had to like find a motel and just stop because I've been driving anyway. The motel that allowed me to stay because it was COVID, and they were just like, "Here, give me your keys. There, go around the back." Like they wouldn't even let you in. I was just so frustrated and anxious that I just had to go in the back of the hotel, and there was this beautiful field, and it was just all dandelions, all day, like hundreds of dandelions, and then these huge windmills, and there was a bench, so I just sat on the bench, and I just created this dandelion song and started walking in the dandelions, and then it kind of, and then it kind of came, like, I guess, unfolded into something else when I was in my garden, and I just started looking at how the flowers blended together and everything was together, and then it just came on me, so yeah, because people ask, well, how did it come up?
great. I mean, that's what an inspiration that is. I mean, because how things are born from something that way. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Feel the allowed. I mean, usually you pluck them as they come up.
Right, right. And I love how, it transformed into something beautiful. And like you said, the gardener had to fall asleep in order to see the beauty. And I guess I wonder what that looks like in real life. Like, what would it take for someone, like if you're reaching out, like these flowers are reaching and trying to intersect, what would it take for someone to be transformed to say, oh my goodness, this beautiful woman Dana, who's living right on our block.
Right.
I was.
She's yeah. So yeah, it's I'm not sure what it would take. I've tried to. When I first got here, I was a little optimistic, and of course they want to meet me. But
I'm fabulous.
so but I did. It kind of polite, nice. But then after that, averting eyes, not to say, I've hard time getting eye contact after that. From across
Right.
the street.
Right.
So
And a
I
lot of
feel
people think, you know, that when you have, and we'll talk more about this, but when you have the separation and the segregation, like there's some kind of animosity behind it. And a lot of times it's not. It's really just not knowing it. It's a different kind of flower.
yeah.
And I'm used to being in with these flowers. You know, when you get a dozen roses, roses, I hate roses. I don't know why. I should love every flower, but I don't. Roses are like, eh. So when I get a bunch of roses and they're all the same, I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thank you for the thought. But they don't do anything for me. I love the flowers that are all different and hanging over this way and that way.
I've never had a want to have a rose bush. I haven't never had roses.
Oh, you
Yeah.
haven't? No, interesting. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, we'll talk more. We'll have more of a chat where we talk a little bit more about the whole segregation and separation, what it means. I've been reading a lot about it, and I really didn't even know they were different, and just how different people perceive it, and how it's lived out, and how it affects the community, how it affects the individuals. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great.
Thank you so much, Dana, for reading. And I'll see you definitely on the next chat. And thank you, everybody. Definitely, you can get the Blended Garden, Amazon.com on Kindle. If you're watching this video, just touch that little button that says subscribe and share this video with anyone that has children that may be interested in this book. And come back again because you will hear Dana and I talk about. Some really important things about how we live as people in our blended garden. All right. Thanks, Dana.
Ooh, thank you so much for having me.